We've had quite a few updates to the game recently, some of which, of course, people are inevitably unhappy with, but it kind of is what it is. We're going to be talking about Live Arena today, and specifically some champions that you can use to help progress your account inside this game mode. Now, personally, I am in Gold 3, and I am in the top 6,800 players, which you can't really see, I suppose. Let me see if I can get out of the way here. Come on, somewhere I can get it. Maybe. Come on. There we go. 6,872. I could have also just moved my camera on the streaming software, but that's significantly less fun. Now, with Live Arena, this content has become incredibly important to be farming and progressing in, because we do have these area bonuses that are going to help you out significantly in certain areas of the game. So, for example, we're going to have defense ignoring effects inside certain battles all the way up to 20%, which is absolutely insane. We have speed, HP, attack, defense, crit damage, resistance, and accuracy. It's basically an affinity bonus like you'd see inside the Great Hall, but continued over to a specific area. All that being said, the subject of today's video is going to be some epic champions that can help you progress inside the Live Arena, or that are going to help you out with getting those wins per day. So you can see we added an additional chest recently that now requires 5 wins, and you do have a chance of getting a legendary skill book in here every month as well, which is absolutely fantastic. Personally, at least, I am a large fan of this update. I was grinding Live Arena quite a bit myself to try and get all the way up to the big boy chest to get some good gear drops, as well as the primal shards, of course, the primal quartz. So more content or more rewards for stuff that I'm already doing is always a plus in my book. That being said, though, let's hop into it and take a look here. So we have a few roles that we're going to be going over. First of all, the first role that we are talking about is Revivers / Support Champions. So these are essentially going to be the kind of tanky champions, the champions you can build out inside Stone Skin if you have it, those sorts of things that can essentially just help your team out, either keeping them alive or bringing them back if they die. The first champion is inside the Bannerlords here, and it is going to be Ursala the Mourner. I always talk about this champion when I talk about fantastic epic champions. Now, she does have very low base stats at 936 defense and 18,000 HP, but she has an AoE revive with 75% HP and turn meter of 50%, as well as an increased defense and a strengthen, so she can be a perfect setup for any sort of increased defense nuker, or a defense-based nuker rather. Not only that, she does also bring a decreased attack as well as an increased attack on her A2 as well. So overall, she's the perfect setup champion for your team. She has a lot of viability even outside the arena, so for example, Doom Tower, as you can see from her aura, and then she does also have a decreased turn meter on the A1 as well. This champion is absolutely fantastic. If you have her, throw her into a 6-piece Stone Skin set and maybe 3 reaction pieces, if you have them, of course, and she is going to do absolutely fantastic things for your account. The next champion we're talking about is very much along the same lines, and this is actually going to be Cardinal, another epic champion, this time from the Sacred Order faction. Now, what she brings to the table is another AoE revive. This one's a bit different, so it's only going to give them 25 max HP. However, it's going to boost their turn meter to max, so what makes her special is it doesn't say that it gives them 100% turn meter or fills their turn meter. It goes to the max. So what that means, they're getting a turn, right? Like, there's no way to avoid them getting a turn. So if you revive a decreased defense champion as well as a nuker, you can potentially put down the enemy team without issue. Again, build her slow and in Stone Skin, and she'll do fantastic things. Keep in mind, the speed of those champions still does determine the order they're going to go in. So just make sure your debuffers are quicker than your nukers, of course. And finally, in this category, we are going to have Rector Droth, a absolutely fantastic epic champion that still gets a lot of use, even on my account. She has a single target revive with a perfect veil, as well as filling their turn meter and HP. And then she does have a heal, a perfect veil, and a continuous heal if somebody isn't fully healed on her A2. And even more importantly, she has increased resistance, as well as healing everybody that's under a veil or perfect veil. Very decent base stats at 1100 HP, or defense rather, and then 109 base speed. And importantly, she is also a Force Affinity champion, so you're going to have a strong matchup against any sort of magic champions. Think of, for example, Armands, Trunda, those sorts of teams, right? You're going to have a chance that they'll weak hit you, which means they're not going to apply effects or do ridiculous levels of damage to you. Now, the next category to talk about is DPS. Now, this list is definitely quite long, and this list is definitely not exhaustive, so if you have another damage-dealing champion inside your account that you want to use, by all means feel free. And of course, that being said, a big caveat to all of these champions is if you have legendary versions that do it better, go ahead and use that legendary version, right? So you're not going to use an Ursala over a Duchess, even if the Duchess isn't booked. So just take this with a bit of a grain of salt. The first champion that we're going to talk about for DPS is going to be in a different faction, I believe. I always get mixed up where she is. It is Dark Elhain. She is a daily login champion. I do believe I've actually done a guide on her here at some point as well. But essentially, she is the perfect counter to any sort of a Tormund champion or those sorts of control champions, where she's going to remove freezes from herself and put crit rate, crit damage, and strengthen instead. And then she's automatically going to activate her A2, which gives her an increased attack and places a decreased speed on the enemy team. She has a very good set of multipliers on her skill as well. As you can see, people definitely like her, and she has a lot of viability outside the arena as well. So for example, specifically Ice Golem's Peak. That way, if you're investing in her specifically for the live arena, you're not necessarily wasting your resources if you're trying to progress in other areas of the game as well. Next up, we are going to, I believe it is Knight's Revenant, and we're going to be talking about Skullcrown. Now, Skullcrown is an absolutely fantastic champion. She made an appearance in one of my videos not too long ago where I talked about epic versions of legendary champions. She has a passive where she places an unkillable on herself if she would have died, so you don't need to worry about her just getting one shot. She has a massive AoE nuke with a 75% chance of a weaken, and then she has a massive AoE 2x hitter if they have more than 50% HP, which is absolutely fantastic. She is one of the best damage dealing champions at an epic level, certainly for the arena, and she does actually bring a very solid speed aura battle as well. And this one is specific to arena battles, but it is very healthy, 23%. For some sort of a comparison, I have Marichka, who is a Void legendary, one of the best at that, and she's only a 24% aura, so Skullcrown can definitely make things happen for your team there as well. Next up, we have one of my favorite champions in terms of just raw DPS, and that's going to be Phoenix. Phoenix, built out in some sort of Stone Skin Savage combination, can do insane things for your team. His A1 has roughly a 4x multiplier, where he places an extra hit if they have any debuffs. Enemies killed by this skill cannot be revived, so if he places that extra hit, you're getting an 8x attack multiplier on it with a very solid base attack of 1454. With a block revive, this guy can one-tap almost anybody inside the game. I've personally been one-tapped by Phoenix, even if I'm using Harima. I've been one-tapped using Taurus. There's so many champions that this guy can counter, because he just puts out so much raw damage, but especially if you have ignore defense on him, he is so incredibly strong. The rest of his kit, he does also have a decreased defense as well as decreased speed, and then he has a block buffs AoE as well on a 80% land rate. So certainly a very solid champion. You can get a lot of use out of him. Even somewhere like Hydra with that block buffs, right? You also have single target viability against bosses and whatnot because of the decreased defense and decreased speed. We are heading over to the Shadowkin next for a champion that seems to be all but forgotten in today's meta, and that is going to be Genbo the Dishonored. Now, I believe this guy was actually maybe a Twitch Prime exclusive at one point, or an Amazon Prime, I don't recall, but I know there was some sort of event where players were able to get him. He's absolutely fantastic, brings his own increased crit rate and crit damage, and then he's also going to go ahead and decrease the duration of all buffs. He's also immune to decreased attack, and he ignores unkillables when he's attacking under increased attack. So bring an increased attack champion with him, and you're off to the races. And conveniently enough, you're going to be able to go ahead and counter the Skullcrown that we just talked about. And he does, of course, also have the ally speed in arena battles by 20%, which is absolutely fantastic. This guy can help your team go a little bit quicker. He's also going to be able to ignore the unkillables of somebody like Leorius. He perfectly ignores Swift Parry if you're running into that, all those sorts of things. Absolutely fantastic. He also has a chance to steal increased attack as well as random buffs, and the increased attack steal cannot be resisted. So if you have him cut in, you can go ahead and hit the enemy nuker, take their increased attack, or potentially kill them. Sensational champion, very solid multipliers on his kit as well. Over to the Dwarves, we have one of my personal favorites apart from Phoenix, and that is going to be Gala Longbraids. She helped me so much inside the classic arena for a period. She has a 3x hitter ignoring 25% of the defense, and she's going to grant an extra turn if she has full HP after using this skill. Basically, open with this skill, extra turn into her A2, which ignores 50% of their defense when attacking under a shield. So you can place her inside one of the Divine sets, so like Divine Speed, Divine Crit Rate, those sorts of things to give her a self shield off the start of the battle. Or, of course, you can get her inside Masteries or Blood Shield that will give her the shield after attacking as well, which would be absolutely fantastic. And she does so much damage, very solid multipliers. Almost her entire kit is ignoring defense, and then She has multi-hitters on basically everything, so this skill here is very good at taking out somebody like a Rotos, for example. Her A1 and her A3 specifically are very good at countering Wukong through a UDK. Very, very strong champion. As you can see, she has absolutely fantastic reviews across the board as well, and I think they're very, very deserved, to say the least. And the last champion to talk about inside the DPS section is going to be Magnar. This guy is absolutely sensational. He's an AoE damage dealing HP based champion. Very solid base HP, very solid base speed for a damage dealer. He's bringing a lot of good debuffs as well, so specifically the decreased defense on the A1, and then this A3 can hit pretty hard too. So he brings a lot of damage for your team. That being said, you don't want him to be hitting people that are under HP burns, because having that extra hit is going to be doing so much more for his damage as opposed to just having the chance to place a stun. The next role that we're going to be talking about here is speed/control champions. So specifically champions that can either control the enemy team or help to speed boost your team. The first notable mention here is going to be Frenzy the Cackler, this absolutely fantastic looking hyena here. If you have Umbral Enchantress, she is going to be very interchangeable, but I do think Frenzy is a little bit better. She has an A2 with an HP burn, and HP burn does increase damage to Stone Skin now, so if you're going against a slow, tanky team, she can help out there. Additionally, she does have an AoE 100% chance of placing a Provoke on a 4-turn cooldown for 1 turn, and then she's also placing an increased defense on herself as well. So of course, not only is she going to be able to control the enemy team, she's also going to be able to make herself a little bit more tanky when they start coming in with their A1s. Her A1 also has a chance to instantly activate HP burn, which is very, very solid. As you can see, she has some decent reviews all the way across the board. She has a lot of use cases outside the live arena as well, which is kind of a continuous theme with this, right? So we want champions that we can use in multiple areas of the game, because especially if you're just starting out, or if you're a lower level account, you might not have the resources to build out a bunch of champions. Umbral Enchantress is very similar. However, she does also place a block active skills on herself for 5 turns, which is a bit annoying. So I do think Frenzy in today's meta is a little bit better of an option, because you can always just run her with a reset champion and then re-provoke them right away as well. Next up is Dark Elves, and we're going to be talking about Sylar. Sylar has a Speed Aura and Faction Crypt, so you're probably not going to be making use of that. But importantly, her A3 places a decreased speed and decreases their turn meter. So keep in mind this decreased turn meter is going to go through even block debuffs. I believe it's going to work against most protection as well. So for example, like Intercept, I'm not entirely sure if it works against Stone Skin, those sorts of things. Her A2 attacks everybody, 100% chance of placing a decreased accuracy, and then her A1 is just an AoE. So not only can you build her fast for control, obviously with her A3, very solid base stats at 105 speed as well. You can also build her inside a stun set, since her A1 and her A2s are AoEs as well, and get a lot of control going out there. Fantastic for somewhere like Spider as well if you're looking to progress there, and still very decent for something like Hydra, right? So decreased speed as well as decreased accuracy are very strong debuffs to have in Hydra. And then of course, considering she has an AoE A1, you can easily run her inside a Cursed or a Provoke set and get some extra utility out of her there as well. So she is a highly, highly recommended champion. We're going over to High Katoon now, who is a daily login. I believe she's the 30-day login. She has an increased turn meter as well as increased speed on your team, so 15% and a 30% respectively. And then she does also have a turn meter decrease on her A3 on the enemy team, 75% clip rate, and that's a 15% decrease, so it's nothing too insane, but still a very solid champion, especially once again if you're just starting out inside the game, right? And lastly, we are heading back into the Sacred Order. It's beginning to become very apparent that the Sacred Order just has a lot of strong champions. We're talking about Deacon Armstrong. He has turn meter depletion and fill on his A3, extra turn into an AoE defense break. I actually used this guy for a significant amount of time inside my classic arena team, especially when the speed meta was a little bit more alive. He does also have ally speed in all battles by 19%, so he can bring that aura to your team as well. We got a couple more categories to talk about here. The first one is going to be survival. So there's a couple champions that can certainly help out with the survival of your team. The first one, of course, is going to be Vogoth. Vogoth's passive specifically, when he's attacked, he's going to heal all allies by 50% of the damage received. Very solid base HP on this guy. Build him out inside a shield or a bolster set, and you're going to put a massive shield on your team as well. And then he can also just be a tank and sit there and soak up damage. I'm also quite a fan of building him inside a Guardian set as well as Bulwark Mastery, so that he absorbs more damage from the rest of your team. He can definitely help you stay alive through some hits that you might not otherwise. And then kind of along those same lines, we do have Sand Lashed Survivor. So she has a passive that she's going to place an ally protection on everybody for 2 turns when an ally's HP drops below 50%. And then she's also going to place a block damage on herself for 1 turn. A couple ways you can run her. You can, of course, run her in the lead. So if there's an AoE, her HP is the one that drops below 50% first, so then she can go ahead and place that ally protection on everybody else before that damage gets calculated. Of course, she is going to save herself with that block damage as well. You can also run her in the back and then wait for somebody else's HP to drop down, like perhaps Skull Crown or something like that. She does have a increased ally buffs as well as a decreased enemy buffs, which is very, very solid too. She can do a decent amount of damage. She is a defensive-based damage dealer, so you can kind of build her for more survivability, which is going to increase her damage output as well. And then she does have a provoke on the A1, which is pretty cool. And then lastly, the next section we're talking about is cooldown control, or skill control specifically, and there's a couple champions that we could take a look at inside this category. The first one being Alika, who has an AoE 100% chance of increasing the cooldowns of all enemy skills by 2 turns. Absolutely fantastic lockout champion. And then she does have a massive hit on the A2 where she ignores 50% of their defense if their max HP is higher than hers. She has 15,000 base HP. That's not going to be a hard prerequisite to hit. And then, of course, she does still have a fairly decent hitting A1 as well. Build her with some speed, some accuracy, and maybe some crit rate in there. You'll get decent damage, and she'll also help set up your team for more damage as well. If the enemies can't do anything but their A1, they're going to be significantly less dangerous to you, of course. And the last control champion to talk about is going to be Basher. So this guy's absolutely fantastic. Again, I used him for so long inside my classic arena team. Excuse me. He has an AoE increasing the cooldown of all of the target's skills by 2 turns. Again, absolutely fantastic. Very similar to Alika. He's going to require less books though, and he is also a Void Affinity champion, so he's not going to have weak hits or anything like that. And keep in mind, cooldown increasing skills like this can hit through Stone Skin as well. So if you go against a Stone Skin champion, even if you don't remove that Stone Skin, there's still a very solid chance that you'll lock out their turns. Just keep in mind, it isn't the strongest against mythical champions because they still can metamorph into their second form and then, you know, mess you up pretty badly depending on which one you're facing. That being said though, I hope this video is helpful for you guys. If you have any epic champions that you think I missed in any of these categories, definitely make sure to let me know down below. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.